not checking in their luggage anyway. And the ones that do check in their luggage, well, fuck them. They can sit there and wait for an hour. Okay? And what are they going to do? It's an oligopoly anyway. Are they going to fly with another airline? Sure, but okay, doesn't matter. We're still going to be able to fill our flights to the brim. We're still going to be able to max out. The reason why I mention this is because when a situation like that occurs, your immediate reaction in most circumstances is to obviously blame the workers, when in fact, you should be blaming the bosses. The bosses that are doing that specifically for profit maxing to ensure that the profit margins remain high for the shareholders. That's it. That's why they made that decision not to hire enough workers in that time frame, knowing full well that people were going to sit there and wait. That's a calculation that they made. They know that people still do not have the capacity to change airlines. People don't, they're just going to sit there and take it. Consumers suffer for this reason under oligopolies. The gradual decline of customer service can be attributed to that reality. There it is. That is an example of classist sentiment that we inadvertently hold on to and believe. We're firmly committed to that. It is a byproduct of existing in a capitalist structure. Anyway. It is additionally ironic that, like I said, most people are workers, right? The overwhelming majority, the 99%. And it's pretty fucking funny that those very same workers who are getting fucked over and possibly getting yelled at if they are on a customer facing side of their jobs by others that do recognize that it is most likely a consequence of, like, your boss is not hiring the necessary amount of labor in that situation for profit-seeking measures. Forget that in that very moment when they become the customers. But let's get back to this demon right here and liberal Zionism.
Trying to avoid civil casualties, although there are civil casualties during war. But there is no moral equivalence, like there is no legal or moral equivalence between somebody who killed somebody by mistake and somebody that, a killer, a murderer that did it deliberately and tortured his victims before.
Well, let me say this. 4 judges will now decide whether these warrants should go forward. Do you have any reason to doubt the independence of the judges in the process?
So the ICC, this is not a secret. The ICC is not just a court based that is dealing with international law. There are also some political reasons or I don't know, atmosphere that is unfortunately cover sometimes or shadow sometimes the decisions. But I do hope it's premature. So I do hope that this will be the time in which they will look at the evidence. And I want to say also, to add something to this. You know, I am aware and I completely disagree with some statements that were made by Israeli ministers. I detest them. I think that I criticized it. I think that it was really outrageous. But I think that the role or the legal perspective should define or make the differentiation between some statements by politicians and the real policy or how the army is acting.
Well, let me, if I may, let me just ask you a question about that, because it's clear from the information that's already been provided by the ICC. They've given some detail about what they're talking about about murder and extermination of the civilian population, depriving the civilian population of the things they need to live. A whole series of very serious charges. I want to understand this from you. Do you accept that there are legitimate criticisms of the way the Netanyahu government has conducted this war?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge difference.
Yeah, of course. She will say, of course. It's just, we have to deal with it. While we're talking about the institutification of the airline industry, my father's a retired pilot with over 40 years of experience in the airlines industry. He maintained that deregulation is why so many people are still able to travel. He believes that the regulation of airlines stifled innovation. How do you respond to that? It's just objectively untrue. Ask your father if deregulation, if the airlines had their way, because you said he's a pilot. As it stands, there's still, due to the pilots union, a firm commitment to maintaining the regulation that there's 2 pilots at minimum for every fucking commercial airliner that's traveling in doing domestic flights on United States of American soil. Okay, the companies actually want to change that to 1 pilot. That's deregulation. That's a major cost-cutting initiative that would greatly lower the prices according to the fucking corporations, which it wouldn't, obviously, because the deregulation has occurred and prices have not exactly gotten that much cheaper, right? All things considered, especially with all the hidden fees and whatnot. I don't think your father, as a retired airline pilot, would agree with that. Regulation keeps people alive. Labor unions uphold that regulation and both keep people alive, and in at least like in the other circumstances of like the baggage handlers also had a union in the similar vein to like the stewardess union, the steward union, or the pilot union, they would be able to ensure that there's enough people being hired and enough people at every given the time frame that are working so that you could get your luggage in time. All matter of regulation is written with the ink of blood, and it is fought hard for by working class people. It goes back to the same principle that I was talking about, though. Like, your dad is a pilot. He has to be a part of the pilots union, and yet he also simultaneously thinks deregulation is good. So talk to him about his own personal experiences where regulation has been a lifesaver, and why it's important to have 2 pilots in the cockpit at all times. He'll understand.
Difference between criticism. I myself criticize my own government, not only for these outrageous populistic statements, but on some of the policies. But at the end of the day, the Israeli army is acting in accordance to the...
Yeah. See, there you go. The extent of the extent of the political discourse that is permissible within the framework of Zionism is that the army is incredibly important. The army can do no wrong, or even if they do wrong, we can handle it internally in our own court structure. And in instances where clearly we are not doing that, it still doesn't matter. Tzipi Livni played a central role in sabotaging maybe the only serious talks in the Oslo process. She wasted half the Annapolis talks with Abu Allah through her absurd positions on Jerusalem and refugees, and by demanding Palestine recognize Israel as a Jewish state. She played key positions in bloody assaults on Gaza and Lebanon that killed thousands of innocents. This liberal worked with Bibi, and led his negotiations with John Kerry's mission, playing a big role in sabotaging those talks. But she is a liberal. Am I wrong? She presents herself as a liberal Zionist. As a matter of fact, this is one of the more woke liberal Zionists. Because under Zionism, the more you hate Benjamin Netanyahu, the more liberal you are. Same with fucking Yair Lapid. Ultimately, my point is to say that if you are a Zionist and simultaneously a liberal, you are still a fascist liberal. The notion that there is like serious political discourse happening in Israel is ridiculous when the point of contention becomes Palestinian statehood or Palestinian humanity. That is completely outside of the confines of political discourse. That is completely unacceptable. That's it. That's it. You can go as right-wing as you want on domestic affairs, whether women should be allowed to read and write, or if they should just stay at home, okay? You can go as right-wing as you want on the appropriate confines of Zionist discourse of like how hard we can kill the Palestinians. And that's precisely what this man advocates for every step of the fucking way. Only Israel will control Gaza, says National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir on his day after plan, his day after suggestions. Israel will occupy Gaza completely and fully, including Jewish settlements in the entire enclave, and encouragement of voluntary migration of Gazans. He wants to move to Gaza. That is an unimaginably far-right position. That is just straight ultra mega Nazi shit, okay? But it's allowed in Israeli political discussion. You can go as far right as you want on the Palestinian issue, but there is a stopgap measure for how far left you can go, and that far left you can go is recognizing the humanity of Palestinians. The moment that you say, well, these are human beings, we should maybe stop killing them, all of a sudden you're completely outside of what is appropriate political conversations. Okay? There are very few parties that maintain that position in the Israeli Knesset. Their coalition is like at most 14 seats in the Knesset. That is unimaginably right-wing. I don't know how else to describe it. You're talking about fucking Nazi Germany politics at this point. After 2014, she broke with Bibi politically and joined Isaac Herzog's party to run against Netanyahu. This absolute fucking ghoul continued to be on the ugly face of the peace camp while having played a central role in sabotaging the peace process repeatedly. She was literally a Likudnik at the start of her career. Livni quit politics in 2009, if I recall correctly, but she will burn in hell. Yeah. $14 seats is exaggerating it. Yeah, not even 14 seats total. This is very important. So if you're a Zionist, can you really claim to be lefty or moral? If you are a Zionist, no, you're not a real leftist at all. Although in the United States of America, because Israel's a foreign country, in many circumstances, Zionist progressives can still continue to be a part of the left-wing momentum, continue being a part of like leftist conversations, leftist circles and whatnot, until October 7 happens, in which case the progressive except for Palestine people start chirping in the same exact way that you hear from like your fucking QAnon dad. Like they start talking like January 6ers. They're MAGA communists at that point.
The international law. And we have also some examples from the past when Israeli soldiers acted in a way that violated the law, or when an Israeli civilian acted in a manner against Palestinians in a manner that violated the Israeli and international law. he or them were investigated and prosecuted. And therefore, it's not about criticism. It's about putting charges in the ICC that was established in order to give answers to horrific acts that are being made, like Hamas. We are dealing with Putin, Milosevic at the time. This is not the case.
Well, let me ask you.
Yeah, it is. You just don't want to recognize it because it is completely beyond your scope of comprehension that any matter that goes along with the Israeli Zionist project could ever be considered in the exact same light. Except the rest of the world does see it in that exact same way.
Let me ask
this
you.
woman was literally part of the Second Lebanon War and Cast-led, Operation Cast-led. I'm going to lose it. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why her position now, even though she's no longer formally involved in politics, is literally to do this kind of propaganda. That's it.
Let me ask you this then. If Mr. Netanyahu has no reason to be afraid of the decisions he made in prosecuting the war, why shouldn't he go to The Hague and make his case if the judges grant the warrants?
Because The Hague is Hamas.
Come on, we are. I'm not, the legal advisor to the prime minister. It's for Israel to make the decision what's Israel's next step. But as you are aware, the U.S. and Israel are not members or didn't sign the convention that established the ICC, and therefore.
It's a neat little trick, dude. It's like, sorry, we don't subscribe to these gay ass terms like international human rights and the International Criminal Court. Sorry. I'm a liberal, by the way, and I hate Benjamin Netanyahu, but also I will 100% defend him ethnically cleansing the Palestinian population because they deserve it.
So I'm not going to give advices from the balcony.
Well, let me.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is it is Israel is doing I'm a sovereign citizen as an argument. It's just as stupid and morally bankrupt as the ridiculous claim that because Palestinians have no statehood, no formally recognized statehood, because we keep stopping that from happening, by the way, that like they can be victim to a genocide without any proper international prosecution on it. It's like those are the people we need to defend the most. What do you mean? Ridiculous. Oh, they don't have a fucking formally recognized state, so we can genocide them. Okay, thanks, man.
Let me ask you this question. Whatever you say about the ICC's action, do you accept that this is further evidence that Israel is becoming increasingly isolated in the world?
Yes, unfortunately. Unfortunately, yes. Before that, we still have the ICJ dealing with claims on genocide. And I want to reiterate, before we enter with boots on the ground.
How will the Israeli population ever reckon with this reality? I fear so many are so far gone. It's so crazy, especially when you can wrap up your genocidal ambition and all of the criticisms launched against that with anti-Semitism. You could just say, no, they're anti-Semitic. It's crazy. It is genuinely. All right, this lady just made me do a 360 on liberals. I understand that the liberal Zionist shit you're talking about now. Thank you. All right, I get what you're saying now. Like, liberal Zionists will talk about how much they love gay people. Okay, it's called pink washing or greenwashing. They'll talk about how environmentally conscious they are in an effort to dupe other like-minded liberals elsewhere to be on. Well, 360 is back to the same point. He meant 180. Anyway. While simultaneously, obviously, killing a shit ton of gay Palestinians too. It's not like the bombs are avoiding fucking killing gay Palestinians. Israel itself is also, Israel also has a tendency to blackmail gay Palestinians into becoming informants for themselves too. So it's just like, all of it is ridiculous.
Ground to Gaza, we asked the population to leave places knowing that we are going to act there, and we wanted to minimize the collateral or the damage for civilians. And it's not only that. I see young people chanting from the river to the sea, and they don't understand.
It's like, dude, you're literally defending killing 35,000 plus Palestinians over the course of the past 8 months and saying that's not genocidal, while simultaneously decrying that saying from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free or Palestine will be free is actually the real genocide that's occurring. Words are violence. Words are violence, I say, as I'm doing real violence and defending said real violence. It doesn't make any sense. And I think the key factor here is the recognition. The recognition that Palestinians are human beings worthy of dignity, worthy of emancipation. They have the same exact fucking dreams when they put their head on the pillow at night that you do. Okay? They want shelter. They want a meaningful life. They want to be able to work. They want to have a sense of purpose in life. When you come to that recognition, all of a sudden, it becomes pretty clear. It is unimaginably cruel to kill 35,000 of them. It is unimaginably cruel to trap them in an apartheid structure for 75 fucking years, not allowing them to return to their homes, killing them when they try to do so in the early stages, slowly but surely taking away more and more of their lands. Every step of the way saying, well, you deserve this, you deserve this. And if anyone, God forbid, resists, you deliver to them a retaliation that is 10 times, 20 times, 30 times more violent. Is it not possible to denounce Israel's genocide of Gaza while also recognizing from the river to the sea is a problematic anti-Jew statement? I mean, you can do that if you want to, but it's not correct at all. I don't know why you personally consider it to be problematic, because it's not. The example I used with Ethan is the one that I think is most appropriate in this situation. When Black Lives Matter first started as a movement on the ground, as something that some of the people that were crying out about police brutality and the disproportionate targeting of black communities, there were plenty of people who set up counter propaganda against that. They said, all lives matter. Why are you saying only Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter means you want to kill cops. Black Lives Matter means you want to kill white people. This is what people said. And in that situation, those with reactionary leanings looked at that and thought, maybe these guys on the other side are right. But those who are at least intellectually curious asked black people or did their own research to see what black people meant when they said Black Lives Matter. Why is it that in this circumstance, we look at the oppressors and what their understanding of the term is? And when I say oppressors, I don't mean Jewish people. I mean Zionists. A very important distinction to make here, because there are plenty of Jews on the right side of history on the matter. There are plenty of Jews who are saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free at those pro-Palestinian demonstrations. But we do not listen to them. We do not listen to the pro-Palestinian camp on the matter. We take for granted the framing that Zionists cynically deploy against emancipatory slogans like this. Okay? If you do not listen to what a, white reactionary conservative has to say about Black Lives Matter, then why would you listen to what a Zionist has to say about from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? That's it. The Darshan says, in South Africa, the anti-apartheid slogans were kill the Boer, white people, specifically Afrikaners, and one settler, one bullet. I don't think tone policing these slogans matter. When South Africa was freed, they didn't go on to mass murder whites. Exactly. I think the idea that like a country deserves to exist, has a right to exist, is a ridiculous notion. Ultimately, aesthetically, for optics purposes, I don't usually tackle this argument, but a country cannot exist while doing unimaginable harm to an entire population of people that it occupies and that it purposely refuses to give citizenship to. You can't do that. Sorry, Rhodesia has to exist. Rhodesia has a right to exist. That's what you sound like when you say Israel has a right to exist in this way. Israelis have a right to exist. Okay? They do. What is Rhodesia? Great question. It no longer exists. So there you go. Israelis have a right to exist. Israel as a apartheid regime does not. Rhodesian camo is so good, you can't even see it on the map anymore. Yep. What is an Ottoman? That's so funny. Comparing one of the most dominant forces that terrified European colonialists for literally centuries to a failed ethno-state, white supremacist ethno-state project. It's like the Confederacy, defending the Confederacy.
Understand that Hamas does not represent any legitimate cause of the Palestinians. I negotiated twice peace treaty with the Palestinians.
I think I just have to jump in there because I think we need to make a clear distinction in our conversation between the
reason I think that explanation doesn't work well is that Jewish Zionists might not actually be cynically viewing it as so to neutralize it. Some are misunderstanding it and genuinely upset by it. I'm not agreeing people should stop saying it. I'm just saying that explanation isn't convincing the Jews that are actually frightened by it, warranted or not. Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely. This is where the complicated nature of anti-Semitism comes into play. Because in the Western world, anti-Semitism is a real bigotry. It happens all the fucking time. Oftentimes dished out by those in positions of power, too. And the history, the multiple centuries of violence that Jewish people were subjected to makes it even harder. Especially when all of that plight is cynically tied back to, by Zionists, to the existence of the Israeli state as a Jewish one. Okay? I'm not saying that, anti-Semitism is fake or whatever. Of course not. As a matter of fact, that is precisely the reason why I despise Zionists tying the actions of a genocidal apartheid regime to Judaism when it is directly contradictory to centuries of Jewish tradition, to Jewish values, and the